At 4:37 p.m., the cockpit voice recorder on SilkAir Flight 185 stopped recording. Not after an explosion, not after a mayday call, not after screaming alarms. It simply went silent. 5 minutes later, the aircraft hit a river in Indonesia at nearly the speed of sound. No survivors, no distress signal, and no agreement ever on what caused it. This is one of the rare plane crashes where investigators had the data, had the wreckage, and still walked away with completely opposite conclusions. Tonight, we're opening the black box on SilkAir 185, the crash that split the aviation world in two. SilkAir Flight 185 departed Jakarta for Singapore on December 19, 1997. The aircraft, a Boeing 737, proven, reliable, unremarkable. The crew, Captain Su Wei Ming, highly experienced former military pilot. First Officer Duncan Ward, young but well-trained. The weather along the route was calm. No storms, no turbulence, nothing out of the ordinary. For the first 30 minutes, the flight was textbook. Then, without warning, the captain asked the first officer to leave the cockpit. This wasn't unusual. Pilots do this for checklist reviews, radio calls, or paperwork. But while the first officer was gone, something critical happened. At cruising altitude, the aircraft began a sudden, aggressive dive. Not a gradual descent, not a loss of lift, a near vertical plunge. The flight data recorder captured a brief spike in airspeed, then nothing. Radar showed the plane accelerating past structural limits. Passengers had no warning. The first officer was likely still outside the cockpit. Within seconds, the aircraft exceeded what it was ever designed to survive. Then impact. The wreckage field was compact, violently so. A signature investigators recognized immediately. High-speed controlled flight into terrain. But controlled by whom? Here's where SilkAir 185 becomes different. Both black boxes were recovered but damaged. The cockpit voice recorder had stopped minutes before the crash. The flight data recorder stopped shortly after. Investigators asked a critical question. Did the black boxes fail, or were they intentionally disabled? The CVR circuit breaker was found pulled, not tripped, not damaged, pulled. And on a Boeing 737, pulling that breaker requires deliberate action from the cockpit. Indonesia's official investigators concluded, cause undetermined, but the National Transportation Safety Board wasn't satisfied. Their analysis found no evidence of mechanical failure, no sign of control surface malfunction, no system capable of producing that dive on its own. They concluded the descent was intentional, that the aircraft was manually commanded into the dive. This wasn't subtle, this wasn't ambiguous, but saying that publicly meant crossing a line few agencies ever do. Investigators examined the captain's background, recent financial losses. Life insurance policies increased shortly before the flight. Military background with knowledge of aircraft limits. None of this proves intent. But combined with the CVR being disabled, the timing of the first officer leaving the cockpit, the precision of the dive, it painted a picture many didn't want to acknowledge. SilkAir rejected the findings outright, so did Indonesian authorities, because once you label a crash intentional, you change how people see aviation forever. SilkAir 185 quietly changed aviation policy. After this crash, CVR recording durations were increased. Greater focus was placed on cockpit access and monitoring. The taboo around pilot mental health began slowly to crack, but officially, SilkAir 185 remains unresolved. 2 investigations, same data, 2 truths. Sometimes the black box doesn't fail. Sometimes it's silenced. And when that happens, the most important question isn't what broke. It's who was still in control. If you want more deep dive investigations like this, subscribe to Black Box series. Because not every crash ends with an answer, and some questions are still falling.